You're listening to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast, home of the 2-hour deep dive interview with gold, platinum, and multi-platinum bands, including Stained, Blue Rodeo, The Arkells, Finger 11, Big Wreck, Moist, Bedouin Soundclash, I Mother Earth, Ill Scarlet, Neverending White Lights, Thornley, and many more. Please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast, as well as share, comment, and like. Now let's dive in to today's episode. Welcome to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. We are joined by a very special guest. He's achieved a level of mastery as the drummer for the multi-platinum band Alien Ant Farm. So welcome to the podcast, Mike Cosgrove. Mike, how are you? And are you one of the few musicians that's up at 8 a.m. and ready to take on the day?
Hey, Joel, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here. I am, I guess, one of a few that I know of currently right now. I know the guys are up and moving around. We're getting ready to have a rehearsal before we go do the Louder Than Life show in Kentucky. So we shall be rehearsing, I don't know, in about a few hours here.
So most musicians I know are, they're night owls or night hawks by necessity, because you're normally out late playing shows until 1 a.m., 2 a.m. You get to bed at 3, so naturally you're going to wake up late. Do you find you're more of a night person or a morning person?
I think you're right. And years ago, like most of the time, you would be like right on point with that. Our hours are definitely shifted to where, our peak hours, typically as a musician, if you're going to go perform, you're playing around 9 or 10 at night. It's like your peak hours. So that's mostly like when people are going to bed to wake up for work the following morning, and with all the travel and this and that. So it's a little bit a different type of schedule. But when we're home and in our later years, now, we tend to be getting up a lot earlier, getting out and moving around, hiking, going up the hill and doing kind of old guy stuff. But yeah, it's once we get back on the road though, which we will be, and then plus traveling into different time zones and stuff like that, it becomes a little bit tricky. And keeping hours is kind of like not a thing. They're just what they are.
So we're going to talk about those festivals coming up, about the big tour coming up. But first, I wanted to kick off this interview powerfully. So I reached out to another iconic drummer whose drumming has shaped the songs on the radio over the last 10, 20, 25 years. So I have some kind words sent in from someone you know. This is from Dave Buckner, the original Papa Roach drummer, who, man, I'm a massive fan of that guy. And here's what Dave has to say. And apparently he really likes you, because he sent in like a huge paragraph. So here we go. Dave says, I've known Mike Cosgrove for almost 30 years. Our bands came up together in the 90s, and we've remained good friends the entire way. He's one of the most underrated drummers ever to sit behind a kit, a true master of the percussive arts, and he's a solid human being to boot. Mike has an uncanny ability to effortlessly blend multiple styles together in his playing. He'll take a straight rock song to a whole other level by blending Latin, Afro-Cuban, R&B, or prog feels and fills into the part, and he makes it look so effing easy. Believe me, it's not. Cos has been an important influence on my drumming over the years, even though I have never come even close to matching his skill. Joel, while you have Mike in the chair, you should ask him to tell the story of how we became blood brothers. It's definitely one for the rock and roll history books. F him up, Causey. I'll see you on the flip side, brother. That sounds like him, right? That's from Dave.
Wow. Oh, God, that's like that was so kind and nice and that's so Dave and I just got like chills. It's like took me back like real quick.
That's so Dave.
Um,
That's funny.
yeah, we just we were just on tour doing some of these Western dates and we stopped at Dave's house to see his pad in Idaho. And it was a really, really cool hang. We got to swim and eat and get through a storm together that blew through. But yeah, it was really cool to see him. He is like family. We don't get to see each other enough. And through the years, we've had like this as we go and life goes on and trying to keep this like profession and everything together. Rock and roll is rock and roll sometimes. And So he's one of the people that, through the years, like I said, I've known from the beginning of things when these two bands were just starting to like kind of take their baby steps, and he's remained like one of the consistent, just lovely people that I can say that I'm glad and lucky to know. I think that we all like agree. I think anybody that's met him know like what a great person he is. And those guys, the whole band, they've all just been like super like again like brothers. It sounds funny because the ants and the roaches, we'll talk about, and it just coincidentally came together like that. We had no idea of each other like when we were naming each other's bands, you know what I mean? Or and not naming each other's bands, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Bands. But so so it was interesting, and they were from up north, and we were from down south, which is in California is so such a long state. It's you might as well be like across the country at that point, especially without the internet like kind of being what it is today. So we were worlds away, and so they would come down and play shows here, and we'd go up there and play shows, up in like Northern California, Vacaville, like Sacramento area is where they're from, and we're from Riverside, California here, and so we would start to like swap shows, and we found out about each other from different. I think their manager Brett Bear was at parties that we were at in like LA and blah blah blah. So it just kind of like was like a weird network. So we just kind of had heard of them, and they heard of us through other people. And so we kind of got like kind of teamed up together like that. And then once we played together, because you do that stuff, plenty, and you meet a lot of cool people along the way. But it is what it is. And so when we met them, we just found something kind of like just like-minded and in their efforts. And it just seemed like they were like poised in the same way. I mean, they were doing their thing like totally different and but just the same energy, if not more, you know what I mean? It was just like a really, really cool thing. And we just kind of like bonded right away. And so we played some shows, and the funny part is the first show that we played together was at a place called Friar Tuck's in like Pomona, I want to say California. Tiny, tiny little bar. And we saw Papa Roach, and that's our first impression of them playing. And excuse me. And they just were badass right there on like the floor of this little like kind of divey bar, you know what I mean? And just from then on, and they've kept that same energy, from that first time I saw them, till now, I can still see that same energy and feel it. So it's really, really cool. They had something very authentic from the very, very beginning. And I think that we had something similar but different, you know what I mean? I think in us, I know that we were driven as well. And so that particular night, we had them, they come open support us, you know what I mean? 'Cause it's our kind of local area. And I don't know, there's probably like 50, maybe 100 people, if that, and so that's where it all started. And then we went back to Dryden's house to go hang out and have some beers or do whatever, and so they had to leave in the morning. And when they left, I think they got like $30 for that show, enough to kind of get them
Ballin'.
money. Yeah, big time. And um so when they were leaving, that they didn't have those $30, so they were trying to find it. And I thought, fuck, man, I want them to have their money. I don't want them to think that they came here to party and somebody took it or something, you know what I mean? Just like whatever it is, so or that they lost it. And then eventually down the road, they found it, and so we were stoked and that they had their $30 and all that stuff, so that's kind of a funny story, in itself. But then later on, we would hang out, we'd play shows together all the time. We'd play out of state together, we'd play, and it was built, we were starting to snowball and everything was awesome. And so as each band was starting to get like create this interest, you know what I mean? And things were stirring. We were like talking to labels, and they were talking to labels and doing these showcases and this and that. And we kind of knew about this stuff. And I don't even think the showcasing had started, but anyway, we were hanging at Dry's one night, and we were in like a van. We were all had our both our bands and stuff. We were just after some show, and we were just kind of just talking about, if one makes it before the other, we're gonna, get the other band or take them up to where we are, get them signed, or do our best to vouch for them, however, but we just made this like oath, you know what I mean? And when you think about it, it's kind of silly, like romantic stuff that you do, when you're in the moment or whatever, but it's, rarely are you in a position to be able to follow through with what you had like made this pact about, and all that. And, and Papa Roach were the ones who made it first, you know what I mean? They're the ones after like being courted and all this stuff. And we were being courted as well, but we just didn't end up getting a deal. You know what I mean? Nobody offered us a deal at the end of the day. And we were just kind of like just sitting there going like, whoa, like at least something, And there was nothing. And they were already like in motion and doing great. And we were just like sitting there kind of on the sidelines, just going, God, like we were so happy for them. But we were just kind of so puzzled, like, what did we do? Like, what did we not do? I don't know, And so finally, they got a chance to, have this imprint label with DreamWorks. And so when we were at the end of our road, we didn't know what to do. And then they came through with this, hey, what do you guys think about this? And blah, blah, blah. And we were just like, what? We were just blown away, So they followed through with this whole thing, and Dryden jokes around and says, who knows if we would have even like helped them out if we would have made it first. But of course would have. We love them. But it's, man, it's I can't say enough about it. It's like something that's like and for me in a rock and roll, like, fairy tale, that's like a story in there that just has like come into fruition, and really helped to that as well, with maybe a select few other things really, altered the course of my life and in the band, everybody collectively in the band, and I guess anybody attached to us, for that matter. So yeah, so not to go on anymore and any more long-winded than that was. I mean, I can't say enough because it really, really was like the genesis of like something truly beautiful and like I said, like storybook-like and fairy tale-esque or something.
How incredible is the longevity of both bands? So we're 2024. You have Alien Ant Farm, new album out, going on this massive tour. Half the tour is already sold out. The festivals that you're about to play, you have one tomorrow and then a few more coming up. They might be the most incredible festivals I've ever seen. The lineups are has every band I've ever loved basically and then you look at Papa Roach where still new albums, hit singles. They just have Carrie Underwood recorded as a special guest on their new single. Do you have anything to say about the longevity of both bands all these years later?
Well, it is pretty crazy to and surreal to think that we're here at this point, in our career and in time. And to see Papa Roach, they've done it so consistently and just kind of, I mean, they've had to like get through their ups and downs and their trials and tribulations and stuff, and they've just, remained just like resilient, and they're champions, you know what I mean, at this thing that we do. And in life, and as people, as musicians, as kind-hearted, giving people, I mean, they just are that, to the bone. And so for them to keep on doing it, I mean, if there's a thing such as karma, I think that they deserve it. And they're great, talented musicians, you know what I mean? They've come with such energy, and they remain one of the most energetic, like Kobe's is time and time again, you hear it echoed, just that he is just like the most energetic frontman and this and that, you know what I mean? Just like, I don't have to say it, but for them to be around this long, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, if anybody has the energy, it's them, and again, they just keep on doing it. Whereas like, we've had like our little like pitfalls and stuff, and we've been there, but we haven't made nearly the amount of music and stayed as consistent. I mean, like to it just, it's pretty remarkable.
So we'll dive into that new album, Mantras, that you guys put out this year, and I'd like to go all the way back to the beginning. We're going to do a full 2 hour deep dive interview. We're going to cover your life, your career, your discography, and people see you today as this rock star drummer in this multi-platinum band. But that's not the beginning. I mean, there's a story there. There's a whole journey to get to where you are today. So let's take it back to the beginning. Where does this love of music come from? And do you have an earliest musical memory, a time where music maybe stood out to you for the very first time?
Yeah, well, so I mean, I've talked about it before. It's just like music, I've had my grandparents, they would play a lot of music. My mom would play a lot of music. My family and stuff. It just different. I have like almost each family member was almost like a different color because they all kind of had different types of music that they brought into my world. So it was really, really cool. My mom was into anything from, I don't know, like Blondie to like all the Motown stuff to like oldies, like kind of, that all that culture. I mean, but pretty much anything, and my grandparents just jazz and just I don't know. It was so eclectic. I mean, I think a lot of us kind of grew up when I talked to a lot of my friends and same thing. They're around their grandma's playing certain kind of music and whatever, and it all just kind of just came into my world. We didn't have tablets and phones and all this kind of stuff to kind of like ignore the world or, kind of shut it out. Like we just were in that world wherever we were. If you were in the back seat of a car, you kind of were at the mercy of what they were playing. So, you know, you just kind of it's got programmed or whatever. So it could be talk radio or whatever. It could be Dodger games listening to Vince Scully, but whatever it was just I think it was just that. What I mean? That's my earliest memory was just kind of just being in the backseat of a car or whatever and just hearing stuff that caught your ear and that you kind of just felt something. I don't know, what I mean? Something like that.
So once we scheduled this interview, I put out the bat signal to get questions from Alien Ant Farm fans, and the fan army showed up big time, and I got lots of questions. And here's the first one, and this is from somebody that knew you when you guys were teenagers. So this is from she says your old friend Rochelle Ashmore. It might be Rachel, but it looks like Rochelle. So Rochelle Ashmore. Her question is, how long have you been playing drums? We met when we were 16 and you were already playing then.
Mm, uh, that's funny. Um, yeah, so I started playing. I got a drum set when I was 11. That's cool, Rochelle. I asked a question, so hi, Rochelle. But I was 11 years old when I got a drum set, and I finally like got my own drum set. I had like a couple toy drum sets that I basically destroyed, like I think like pretty early on, or I had like a drunk aunt that came, my Aunt Christina, she came and like played my drums one night, after my mom and her and some friends came back from a bar and they're like paper heads, like from like Toys R Us kind of drums, and they got kind of punctured and I was pretty pissed. But that was that. So I had a couple little things like that to bang on, but I hadn't had any kind of idea of like really what I was doing or but I guess like they had a record player, and I would set up my drums next to the record player, and I played to like there was a Chipmunk Punk record that was out, and I'd play to that, and I liked doing that. So do the best I could. I don't know, just banging around in time or something. But when I was 11, that's when I really first started to play. I was like, I got a drum set, and I was trying. I still didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I was trying. So. And I kind of went back and forth. I had the drum set and I was like into skateboarding a lot, and so it was more skating at the time, and then I'd go to play the drums, and I'd kind of sit there and go, God, okay, that was fun, but I don't know what I'm doing, and I just couldn't make any sense of it. And then I don't know what happened, but it just all of a sudden it took over, and I started just chipping away at it, and more of it was sticking, and I felt like all of a sudden I could do more with it. Nobody had at that time really showed me too much. I just like kind of watched MTV and kind of guessed at it. So I had my hi-hat, and because I only had like a ride cymbal and my hi-hat, it just made no sense. I had these drums, and I'm like, and I had just this, that, and I'm like, gosh, I want more cymbals. So I didn't know what to do with the hi-hat or how to set it up. So I just took both cymbals off and just put them on a cymbal stand lid, which if you know anything about hi-hats, the bottom cymbal is not really anything of a crash cymbal or anything to be hit like that. So anyway, that was my first like go at it. And then eventually I had some friends that kind of came in and kind of gave me some pointers and this and that, and I figured it out. But yeah, like I got the drums finally after begging and crying for them and all this and that. And then I kind of just took about a year for me like going to them and then just be like a couple months not really touching them. And then finally it got its hooks in me. So yeah.
And was the
So about 20 years
skateboarding like
old.
a California influence, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. We were just all into, skateboarding, definitely California stuff, but I think it was starting to take over big time in the whole country. I mean, as far as I knew, I was really just limited to where I was, but yeah, like just Animal Chin, Bones Brigade, all that stuff was out, and so I was just super just swept, just by all that stuff.
Which drummers were your biggest influences back then in the early years of your drumming from say 11 to, I don't know, 16?
So it would be like Steven Adler was like my favorite drummer because I loved Guns N' Roses. And so that's kind of like the Appetite for Destruction record was probably the thing that like really, really got me playing because I could play it and it was on the record, it was current, it was like the biggest record, so and for me to be able to play it right then, it was like some kind of gratification, I think. And so at the time, he was definitely like it all worked out. I could play it, it was all like everybody was like into, at the time. So it just was like perfect, like storm for me. Um, but then, I was like I was really into this band Agent Orange, and it was kind of like punk stuff, like skate punk style, and I loved like Suicidal Tendencies at the time, and so it's like a lot of like just what I was like skateboard influenced, and started to get into like just like the different like stuff like that. I love the Beatles too. I mean, it's just like a weird thing because CDs were just coming out, and I got a CD player around the time, and my mom bought me the White Album with that, and I got Agent Orange, Living in Darkness, and so those two things I could kind of like that, and also Appetite for Destruction. So those things I could kind of play a little bit. And also, um, my buddy Billy, his dad would take us and we'd play like venture songs. And it just so happened again, just coincidentally that Agent Orange were playing, they covered a few venture songs. And we just thought those were Agent Orange songs, me and my buddy Billy. And so his dad, played guitar and was teaching him, and his sister had drums, and I was like kind of like would hang out at the house, and so they kind of fostered me in, with the music, and that's where I was like my first music school, really, and learned so much there that really, really was like a big, big, big part of my music career or life, whatever. But so we'd go there and we'd be playing like Agent Orange. We were like all on our skateboards, and he heard like Pipeline and Miserlou and a couple songs. He was like, he started playing along to like, well, what? How do you know Agent Orange? Like we just that's how small our world was, we just were like that was it. And so when he could start playing that stuff, we were just so fascinated and thought, whoa. And it's like, yeah, it's like the Ventures. So we started within the Ventures, like, oh whoa, these guys are pretty cool. And so we kind of went backwards with him. He started playing us like these oldies that were cool. We started kind of discovering, oh, Agent Orange is playing like covers of the Ventures. And so that kind of was like a big like mind blown like but cool thing to learn. So we started again listening to stuff that we could actually play, so it was again that gratification of being able to play this stuff. Now, like, when we got into Metallica and stuff, it became like a lot more difficult. So we kind of like had Metallica there. We even had like, the guitar books were sitting there, but just couldn't really make no sense of it yet. We weren't there yet.
It's
And
it's hard to get it's hard to start with Master of Puppets when you're learning your instrument.
yeah, and you're like, God, I want to be so metal and rad, It's like but you're only as metal as your hair has grown out. Yeah, you know what I mean? So it was almost like a marker or like a gauge of, I just hadn't got there yet. But yeah, so you saw that other stuff and you just kind of tried to ignore the fact that that was like way beyond you, and so you still wore your leather jacket and tried to be cool, and but you're like still playing like Ventures, So it was like a kind of a funny thing. You're playing like these kind of oldie songs, which, in hindsight, I'm so grateful for having that influence and just kind of just being guided that way, because it really that helped because again, being able to play songs that are classic and work, that people like, and then being able to make them feel good within the band, just with Billy's dad guiding us, it really, and Billy's sister Angie, she'd play bass, and it just every once in a while, it's usually the three of us, but yeah, and then to have like a bass guitar join the mix was like just wow, just to feel it like on your skin, you know what I mean? It was like just really cool. Um, So I think that like a lot of that time, just was a lot more formative than I had anticipated. And it's like, and I wasn't embarrassed to play with them, but it was like kind of embarrassing, not embarrassing, but not cool when you're trying to be all cool with your skate friends. Everybody's like into punk and this and that, and but you're just there playing, the Ventures and Rolling Stones and doing your best but it was so fucking cool. I mean, we were playing good and playing tight and like had a good groove to everything. So I mean, I learned so much with that. And we would have fallen on our faces as we did, in the, following, years trying to get there, to be like our heroes, like say like Metallica and other bands, like we're into Slayer and all those kinds of things. I mean, there was no way we were going to play that, out of the gate. So it was just the having that little step, that little crutch to kind of get us there was really, really essential. And I like I said, it was just in hindsight, I could not have planned that, especially my 12-year-old brain would not. I would have rushed right to Slayer and Metallica and just played it really bad and probably never got further.
It's cool to hear all the music you were listening to back then, all the various genres, because I just went back and listened to your entire discography, I don't know, 5 times, and it's you can hear a wide variety of genres and influences in your drumming. Like you have a very unique drum style, and hearing the stuff that you were jamming to way back in the day, it makes a lot of sense after having heard your journey as a drummer, at least in the recorded form on the albums.
Yeah, well, thanks. I mean, thanks for doing taking the time and listening to the music. Yeah, I think from the very beginning, when I took a few lessons in in Santa Ana, California. It was right next to the Guitar Center. It was the nearest Guitar Center to us at the time. So to go and like really, set your eyes physically on really, really rad, music gear and all that stuff, we'd have to go there or Hollywood. Or you had like mom and pop shops, which kind of, were not the same at the time, especially. Um, so next to that was a place called Music Lab. And so, because we'd go there, it'd be like a field trip, like Billy's dad would take us, we'd go to Guitar Center and we would just spend like, an hour or a couple hours, whatever, and then go have lunch and then drive back to Riverside, which is like about an hour. So we'd go out there and just kind of like just stare and just like it was cool. And so next to that was a place called Music Lab, and it's like it said, you can get your music degree here. It's like, what? I can take lessons and get my degree here. Like I don't have to go to school. Like this would be cool, perfect. I just had to get there, which was tough. And I was like 15 or something like that. And so we had a friend, another guy named Bill. And Billy's dad's name was Bill. So there we
You
go.
only hang out with Bills, is what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
learning here.
And so so Bill, he we would drive to the music lab. He would take guitar lessons, and I would take drum lessons there. And it was really, really cool. I'd go in there and I'd learn, and it was still overwhelming because I didn't really know anything. Um, I'd learned like in school, in elementary school, like a few, like just to play like recorder, a kind of like how everybody does, and like what note values were, and kind of tapping along. But that was about the extent of it. And but that did help. And So when me and this guy, I can't remember his name. It's like Frank or something, but he's a really good drummer, but more of like a rock kind of drummer. And but he showed me some stuff, and it was really cool because I could kind of play, you know what I mean? But I just could play what I could play, you know what I mean? Nobody really showed me anything that I had to kind of try and take out of their hands and into mine, you know what I mean? And so it was pretty cool and challenging. And so he started like teaching me stuff just, and I remember one of the first songs was Leave Me Alone by Michael Jackson. And it's kind of like this got to do got to do got. And I remember uh it's like a 6/8 kind of feel. And I remember like learning that and kind of like going like, wow, like, okay, that's cool. And that song, because I loved Michael Jackson growing up, but I hadn't really thought about Michael Jackson. But for this guy to kind of point it out to me in a drum lesson and have me learn it, I was just going, huh, okay. And that was really cool. So that was fun. I could kind of get it. It was easy to get. It was something I wasn't playing, but I could get it. And then I was going there for a few weeks, and then he showed me this Latin beat, and it's like boom, ba-doo, ga-boom, ga-da-boom, da-da-boom, ba-boom, ba, like real just, and it was like trippy. And I just remember going, wow, this is like something totally like foreign to me. I never would have like even tried to do this. And it's required all my limbs to kind of like, be independent. And it was real simple, basic independence. But at the time for me, it was just like fucking like just like broke the seal on something. And it was like really cool. So I remember just the feel of just having everything working like to the mechanics of it and all that. And it was just really cool. So I remember that being like kind of just my mind, being open to that and enjoying that. And then he brought to me was the Toto and Led Zeppelin, that Rosanna shuffle and the Fool in the Rain shuffle, halftime shuffle. And I just didn't when I heard it a bunch of times, but I never really even thought. It was like so many notes in my head going on that I just couldn't even make sense of it. I didn't even try. And there's like ghost notes involved in it, which is a really big deal. And well, for me, like, really became like I think part of my playing. But again, like looking at him doing it, I just looked like it sounded like he had like three hands, you know what I mean? It was going. And I was watching it, and it still just looked crazy to me. So I didn't really understand it. I tried like with all my might, but I couldn't get it. At that time, I couldn't get it. So I remember like just later on, yeah, I had a drum teacher, really important drum teacher to me, Jay Laskowski. He taught me how to read. He taught me my rudiments, like really how to play them. Everybody learns a paradiddle, whether they play drums or not. You've heard it, and so it's like that kind of stuff. But I didn't know how to bring it up to speed, how to have technique, how to do anything. It just felt like a real forced pattern that I just didn't know. Like, and when people got going at speed with that stuff, it just turned into a blur that I couldn't understand. And so when I tried to do it, I just would move my body, but it wasn't happening. You know what I mean? So all that kind of stuff. So I stuck to mostly, a lot of just single strokes and just playing like that, like rock drumming. Wasn't a lot of finesse or anything. So once I got to Jay, he taught me like just identifying the up and down stroke and really this like technique, and then how to like just note value, separating, playing like a paradiddle, straight like as eighth notes or sixteenths, but then turning it into like triplet form, and how the accents will shift, and taking, triplet kind of rudiments, and taking those straight and kind of just doing them opposite and doing all this different stuff. And then we got into like shuffles, and they started teaching me shuffle. And when you start learning a shuffle at first, it's kind of corny. And especially, it's kind of like music of the times. If you're doing just like a jump or swing shuffle like that, it's kind of, again, it's just not stuff that Metallica would play or something. And so once we break it down to a halftime shuffle, that's when it became interesting. And then you put the ghost notes in there with the halftime shuffle, and it became like a whole other world, a whole new world of like what you can do with stuff. So when that happened with Jay, that really just like, and again, I was understanding, reading music and all that stuff. So it really became a cool, just again, just my whole mind and everything had just like shifted to this new world of just technique and grace notes and ghost notes and all that stuff, and accents, and just knowing, the stuff. It's like I knew how to play some of this stuff just by default from playing music, playing records, playing in bands, because I was already playing in bands and playing shows and stuff like that, but I just didn't know technically what I was doing. And I know I was hitting a wall, and people would say, hey, you're a good drummer or something like that. And I just knew like, yeah, okay, maybe, but there's so much like they don't know what they're talking about, first of all. Like they don't know what a good drummer is. So thank you, but all right, whatever. But at the same time, within my own like kind of like mental, just kind of critiquing myself and all that, I knew that there was so much more. When I saw other people, there was so much to be like desired, and to get there and learn, because again, like just simple like double strokes and this and that, it was really tough to like kind of like know how to transition like for speed and this and that, and feel and dynamics and all that comes with it. So that's when it really got into technical stuff. And so that really, I was stoked that I had like the ambition and kind of like the drive because I was really really enthusiastic about learning the music and learning how to read it and tap along to it. Like, I always had like the books with me, and would sit there and just like have the book open, just tapping, rhythms out, just reading, just practicing reading, moving on to, 16th notes to dotted notes to this to that, whatever it was, just learning the values and all that stuff. It was just really fascinating. And to know that this is what it is. And if you're not playing it like this, then you're playing it wrong, just so it was cool. And then later on, I went to my teacher, Rick Steed, who he took me even further into like the technical stuff of just with the technique and with everything else and just like different exercises and again like grooves and yeah. So that was sorry.
No, we have a lot of drummers that listen to this podcast, so I'm sure they're going to love the technical breakdown of the drums there. And I have some kind words sent in here from Chris Laurie, who's the guitarist for the gold-selling band Tantric, who I'm a big fan of.
Oh wow.
So Chris says, I've never met Mike personally, but I've always loved his drumming. He's got such an iconic groove about his playing. Aside from that, he seems very genuine and grateful for his success. Hope to get the chance to link up someday. That's Chris from Tantric.
Wow. Thanks, Chris. That's like really, really super nice. Wow. I appreciate that. That's yeah, I didn't expect that. Yeah, I'd like to meet him and link up and say hello and play some shows. I know that we've anyway, yeah, so that's really, really nice. So
Yeah,
cool.
maybe all these festivals where there's like 100 successful bands on the bill. Maybe you'll both be on the bill at some point.
As I said,
Let
we've played shows, we've played shows with them, but I just like I don't think like you said, like we haven't met officially. So cool. Anyway.
So let's dive into Alien Ant Farm now. So the band formed in 1996. How did you meet the other members of the band, and where did the idea of starting a band together? Sometimes you're just friends, and then you kind of learn instruments, and it just progresses naturally. In your case, were you guys friends, and then you learned instruments and started playing together, or were you guys already musicians and then found each other while looking to start a band?
Yeah, so for everybody in Alien Ant Farm when we started, Dryden, Terry, Ty, we were all musicians when we met. Um, it's okay. So I was in a Primus cover band with Ty. We were called Timus, and so we were playing like backyard parties and having fun. He was in a band with his brothers and my buddy Billy called The Color Red. And so my buddy Billy, who I'd grown up with and been in bands with, he was in a band with Ty and Ty's brothers, The Color Red. And Ty and I were playing in a Primus cover band called Timus. And Terry and I were in a band called Brother Vibe. And Dry and we were in a band called Out of Order earlier on. And then he was starting to break off and starting to play like acoustic stuff. He had a band called Dragonfly, but just before Dragonfly was formed, him and I were playing a lot of this acoustic stuff that he was starting to write and starting to record with his dad's little 4 track. And when we were doing that, I was playing with Brother Vibe, and Brother Vibe was pretty kind of really doing good in our area. And so we were really busy and we were kind of thinking that we were going to do something. And so when Dryden was starting to do stuff, I was pretty busy with what I was doing. So he got a band together and I was starting to like help them book shows and this and that. And as that was all going on, uh, Ty and I were playing and just like started feeling like we just started talking about, oh, let's, me, Terry, and Ty jam, and then as we started talking about that, we thought, oh, that'd be like a really cool idea because we practiced it. We rehearsed in this place in Riverside. There was like a storage unit called Van Buren Self Storage, and a lot of bands played there. And so we were like there, and we, kind of you just kind of go roaming around and visit every other band that's rehearsing, say hi, whatever, drink a beer and whatever. So we would like talk, and so we went there and Ty and Terry and I we would play like some Primus songs together because Terry loved Primus as well. We all did. And so then we thought, okay, what if we, jam together? And then I told Dry that we were talking about it, and Dry said, hey, let me come try and sing. And I was like kind of surprised because he was so into his acoustic thing. And so he did, and it kind of just worked right away. And so we did that kind of like behind everybody's back, and because it's, when you're in bands and stuff, and we were like trying to like make it and all this stuff. Every band was trying to do it. So it was kind of like we didn't want to, people get a little bit, there's a jealousy or kind of like, what's up over there? You know what I mean? What are you doing? And as we were doing it, we were like really, really digging it. It was hard not to like, it just felt natural, and things were, there's an excitement, thing we're just writing music and this and that. And so then it just became, well, what do we do? And so we made it a point. We just said, well, we gotta like focus on this because at first we are gonna wear masks and do all this stuff and because we loved Mr. Bungle, we loved all these bands. That's the thing, collectively and we were just like all the bands like or all the guys technically were like at the level that we wanted to play and into that kind of music that we were into from Primus to because being able to play Primus on the bass is not easy and singing at the same time like Ty is very fucking badass way early on being able to do that, so that was and had personality, all that stuff, and so it was just like it just felt natural and we just wanted to do it. It was exciting, and so that the music felt easy. It felt like we were just doing something a little bit different and like kind of using all these other different styles, like you were mentioning, and kind of like taking advantage of all these different things, these influences that we had collectively. And and it just worked out, and Dryden's voice, he had his own way. It's like a really cool, unique cadence and way of singing. And it was, melodic and like a good like breath of fresh air for what we had been all like doing. Well, I wouldn't say that because Color Red was pretty melodic too. But anyway, uh but it just was different and it worked out, it felt really good. And so that just became that. And shortly after we had to like just tell everybody, hey, we're gonna do this, we're pursuing this, and it kind of ruffled a lot of feathers. We had Brother Vibe had like a pretty decent following and was doing really really well like locally, and so like a lot of people were like, what the fuck are you doing, like why would you like disband that? And it was a great band, like it was really really cool stuff, tight. We had some great recordings we did with Rich Mauser and it just, this other thing just felt even more, you know what I mean? So that's all I could say, but yeah, like I was playing in different bands with them collectively, so I kind of brought them together, you know what I mean, just to form, I don't know, a super group or whatever. But it was just the people that we wanted to play music with, each other. And it was working. It was hard for Terry because Terry wanted to stay with Brother Vibe and kind of balance both of them. And I was kind of just like, man, I want to do this. And Terry was like real like torn, but he kind of knew, you know what I mean? It's just like it was hard to do at the time with everybody working and this and that. So to focus and anyhow, so that's what happened. It was tough because like I said, we loved all the other stuff that we were doing, the people that we were doing it with, but it just was the decision for us. So
And at what point did you guys settle on the Alien Ant Farm band name, which is so unique? Were there other names that almost made the cut that we can share with the listeners? And my last question is there a story behind that name? I remember reading way back, I became a fan when I believe I was 16 when Anthology came out. And I believe way back then, I remember hearing that we look at an ant farm in glass and we're looking at all the ants go. And if aliens were looking down at Earth and they saw us little humans, it would look like, an ant farm viewed by aliens. That's what I remember reading way back in the day. I don't know if that's fake news. Maybe you can share some insight.
no, that's pretty spot on. Terry had thought of that name, Alien Ant Farm, and I don't know if it was inspired by something that he had read or watched, but I think so. But anyway, but he came up with that, and again, like you said, it's like aliens kind of looking down at us as some kind of like experiment, and which is funny because when you explain it in other languages, you have to explain it because they don't have ant farms in other countries and cultures typically, like we do here. And so it's kind of like alien fish tank is like, the best like way to describe it or whatever. So, but the the other one, Ty had Masters of the Universe, and
I feel like a lawsuit would find its way for
yeah,
Masters of the Universe.
yeah, it was cool, and it was kind of right on schedule for like the type of stuff that we were doing, but yeah, Alien Ant Farm just kind of stuck.
In 1996, so the same year you guys formed, you started recording demos. I believe there's two different demo tapes that were released. Um, how excited were you guys to have recorded music? Because it's one thing to, tell people how good you are, but to be able to just physically hand them music that's undeniable, that's like a huge step forward for a band. And what opportunities presented themselves once you guys actually had music that you could put in someone's hands that they could listen to?
Well, okay, so for instance, we didn't have, the internet or nothing like that. So you had to have like some kind of like demo, a lot to like book shows and stuff. So you had to like send, physically send a demo, and some guy had to sit there and press play on all these things and kind of toss them, I can only imagine. But so when you make these demos, then you can, get booked and all that. So that was kind of like you had to send like a press kit, a picture, a little bio, a demo tape. And a lot of times you could just set up a little ghetto blaster and press record and get like in your rehearsal, room, or you might have like an acoustic guitar and sing, whatever it could be, just your best attempt to like sound legible. And I guess if you could make a demo tape, then you were kind of like one up on the just anybody else. So, because it was, to record, especially even like to record shitty fucking quality, it was like you had to like find someone that had like, it was just, it wasn't what it is today by no means. And it's so crazy to say because, it doesn't seem that long ago considering, and
Kids these days, they just don't know how good they have it with
I
the
know
technology.
I can't believe how I sound, but yeah, it's the truth, and so like to be able to do that was like a big deal, and to have our buddy, our buddy, we called him Chunk, Mike Van Diest. He was the one to get us into the studio. It was a studio called Moon Song, owned by a guy named Bob Moon, out here in Riverside, and Bob was kind enough to let us get in there and just kind of like, he was the main guy recording, and Chunk, Mike Van Diest, he was like his engineer. And so it's just like studios do, they let the engineers kind of have some, playtime. And so he brought us in there to record. And so we were like just stoked. And we had with Brother Vibe, we had recorded with Rich Mauser and same with Color Red. So we had recorded in like, on 2-inch tape and really, really nice and quality product, I mean, once you got done. So we were like just stoked and knew what it was like to make a really, really fucking buff sounding recording. And so when we went in there and did this like ADAT stuff, it sounded great for like, what it was, but it just wasn't the same, level, just campy, but all the gear that Rich Mauser had compared. I mean, and don't get me wrong, the like Moon Song, there was great stuff done, but we just didn't know how to do that stuff like kind of with that stuff. It's like we just kind of go to somebody and they press the buttons and it sounds cool. So as we were getting in there, we're getting it together and it was starting to sound cool, but like those ADAT, they sound kind of boxy and stuff. So anyway, but so we got it together and we were all decent. We knew how to record. We were type players. We rehearsed really well or a lot and to record the songs really well. And it was decent. And so we got it done and it was for free. I think we paid like $50 or something like that. It was or $100 to Mike for his time. And we spent the time and it was crazy. I remember like Dry was delivering pizza and had to like get off to in time to come and do the vocals. I mean, it was just we were trying to get this, but as we were doing it, because we hadn't played any shows, we were just rehearsing. So we started recording a demo before. So just doing that was like way more professional, like from the start. Like we never thought to do that. Like, you know what I mean? You just form bands and break up before you even do anything, and so we were already recording and getting like really, really good quality out of it. And what we felt. we're starting to hear the songs like unravel, like really, really come together, like really hear them, and it just was like exciting. And so once we had that tape together, we were playing it for friends and friends were digging it and blah, blah, blah. And so then we go, okay, well, let's go play a show. So we played a show and then we started taking that first tape and going and doing just like playing shows and selling it. But I remember I would go and like give that away. Like I'd go like to like the beach and I'd have like a backpack. And I would just go like see people that are skating or people that looked like kind of people that might like our stuff or whatever. And I would just give them our demo, just for free. Just here you go. Like, I don't know. And some of those people, actually listen to it. And when I show up at shows, like, man, I remember I met you. You gave me like some tape, blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of cool that worked out. But yeah, that was just that, and it didn't really and so once we had that tape, we started like sending it off to different places, and we sent it off to this place called Coconut Teaser in LA. And this guy Len Fagan, he listened to that tape, that demo, and he would listen to a bunch of different stuff. He's like a pretty popular dude, like out there, and he had been in bands, and he's kind of like a, I don't know, like a gatekeeper or whatever, out there, and he liked us and liked the demo and had us come out and play for him, and he loved it, and he just took us under his wing and just coached us and taught us a lot. But that demo tape got us in that door, you know what I mean, to where he could listen to it and take a chance and invite us out to do that. So we went to the Coconut Teaser, and then he invited us to do a residency there, like to come play like every Thursday. And you'd get there. I mean, I'm telling you, like back in this time, for us to drive to LA from Riverside, we'd have to get off work or whatever. We had our shitty fucking cars that, were barely like, running and stuff like that. You'd get to LA, trying to find parking was fucking good luck. And we were getting parking tickets like crazy out there. I went on a whole fucking rant, wrote a letter to the fucking city because I got like fucking three in like a month. I'm like, oh my God, I cannot pay this. You know what I mean? Like, and I said I paid it. My grandmother paid it for me. And I wrote this letter like during the Unabomber going on. I'm like, sorry for my vicious parking assaults on the city. Like just like the Uniparker has struck again. It's like, God, like, it's like, fuck, what can I do? They're just taking on my like $30 a ticket at the time. Like, fuck, So anyway, we get out there, we're not getting paid, and you play like five people, you know what I mean, on a Thursday night. And we're just like sit with them and he's like, it's gonna be good. You gotta like build this up, just play like you're playing to 5,000 people, like just don't think about it like that. Just think bigger and just like really coached us and really got in our heads in a good way. And so he started bringing people around, like people that he knew in the industry. And so we started taking meetings, and it's like, wow, stuff's starting to happen. We're meeting with people that actually have done stuff. Like, he's worked with so and so, he's worked with so and so, blah, blah, blah. And so he finally brought in Jim Wirt, and Jim Wirt, he had done like the Incubus record and at the time Science, and he was doing like a lot of different stuff. And we were just like stoked, we had liked the Incubus record, and
It's a great
so
album.
yeah, I mean, it was awesome, you know what
And
I
it's
mean?
so
So
unique sounding, right? Like just nothing sounded like that at the time. That was, I don't know, 99 or something, 98.
yeah, it was just fucking, great energy. I don't know what year. I want to say it was earlier than that. But anyway, it was a fucking awesome record and debut record for a band. We were just all stoked on them, and and for Jim Wirt to show interest. So he came to the show, liked us, and he invited us to come record. And we're like, wow, this is so fucking cool, So we go there and we went to 4th Street and started recording. And so the second cassette tape that we did were 4 songs that were that we did with Jim Wirt there at 4th Street in Santa Monica. So that was again because we made that first demo. We sent that to Len. Len brought us in to showcase, there to nobody really, but then people started coming. So Jim Wirt showed up, and then we go to 4th Street. That's where we make our Love Songs demo, which was we were just recording songs, trying to write songs, with Jim. He was producing us. We were starting to work and learn how to work with the producer. We're really, really learning a lot right there. I mean, because we were just so raw. We knew how to play riffs. We knew how to like kind of we thought we knew how to write songs, but we were like our idea of writing songs was how fucking weird can we get? How,
That's a good starting point.
right? You know what I mean? It's like, we win everybody over like that, but again, we were musicians. We were fascinated by Mr. Bungle and bands like that, and just everything that was hard to play and that, that was avant-garde, the Melvins and all those kinds of bands, it was like how challenging, and even coming from like death metal and speed metal and thrash and all those things, it's like good musicianship, challenging, just kind of weird, Yes, we loved like Nirvana, which is obviously, just great songwriting and all that stuff and sensible and all that stuff. But that was that. And then there was like all the other rad, shred stuff. And so we were trying to like figure out how to do, which just sounded scatterbrain, you know what I mean? Like, when you try to do that stuff and it's like you think it's cool, but it's really just what it is. And so Jim was kind of like guiding us, and kind of shaping us and just teaching us to pay attention to certain things that hey, there's some quality parts in here. Like let's focus on this. You know what I mean? Let's make a song out of these parts, So we started learning how to play the game, not even play the game, but just to craft songs, you know what I mean? To do what it is that we're trying to do. And and you get so scared, I guess, when you're at that time, and especially at that time, but at that age too, it's like you feel like you're kind of anti. You don't want to do pop and this and that and all that other stuff that's like selling records and what you think what they want you to do is what you think. You know what I mean? And so you kind of lose just because you avoid it so hard, you lose what's the beauty and the artistry of writing a good pop song or something like that. So you're not even interested in it. It's just like, no, we don't do that, and or we don't want to do that. We don't want to be like them, you know what I mean? So, but you don't realize it as a musician, what good songwriting is. It's not because whatever. Anyway, I don't want to go, it's all subjective, I guess. But anyhow, at the time, Jim was showing us how to like, kind of think of songs and how to really, really, craft songs. So that was important and focus on melodies, you know what I mean? And give Dryden some space to, have some melodies and like and have Dryden really, not have to wait so long to kind of like get into the game and all this kind of stuff and it was just it was perfect timing for us and we learned so much and he shaped us forever it's in our DNA as with like a lot of other bands but he definitely is in our DNA and at that time we did those love songs sessions, and we were doing a bunch of songs there at that time. And so those went on to be on Greatest Hits, So at the time we did those love songs, 4 songs, just to get it out there, another cassette, two songs on each side, and little banger. And of course we're already starting with calling it love songs, you know what I mean? Because we at the time it's like, you have all these bands that are heavy. We didn't want to be so meathead heavy. We loved heavy music, but we don't want to be another heavy meathead band or something like that. So we were trying to be a little bit more elegant or I don't know, sissy or something, But so we did that and then and we were continuing to record with Jim. And so as Jim was getting busy and doing stuff, like we had all these demos that we had done and songs, and then we just like well, we want to finish a couple more. And we had our friend Miguel who was letting us get into this other studio. And I know I've told this story before, I'll try and keep it short, but we were sneaking into another studio across town that we could go into and touch up some of the sessions that we were doing with Jim. So we were taking our reels and going over to this other place and putting them up. And then Miguel would have this studio, it was like a Latin studio, and there'd be a session that was like off limits. You could not touch the board. And we would go in there in the middle of the night and reset everything. We'd take notes on where everything was set on the board, big ass board, all these dials and this and that, and knobs and so then we'd go in there in the middle of the night after everybody's gone and work through the night and then at the end in the morning go back and have to twist them all back you know what I mean to where they were best we could and then Miguel would just like drive around the corner come back when his boss was there like he showed up for work again you know what I mean and and get through the session so he was just such a saint for doing that, such a champion for us. But so then we started doing that, and so that collection of songs became Greatest Hits. And at the time, Jim was just getting busy, and so we were just like, "Fuck, man! Like we want to do a record, we want to finish a record." Nobody was really biting. We didn't have any nothing, so we're just like, "Well, we'll just put out this CD and call it Greatest Hits," and we'll put it out on Chick Music and it'll just be that, you know. And so it was just we took those four songs from Love Songs, put those on just with the rest of it, and yeah, that was that. So
This episode has been brought to you by the Women in the Music Industry podcast. It's hosted by music producer Rob Wells, who has worked with global superstars like Justin Bieber, Ariana Grande, and Selena Gomez. Through his 1 hour interviews, he shines a spotlight on the remarkable women who are breaking barriers and making their mark in the music industry. Some of his notable guests include Morgan Lander of the multi-million selling metal band Kitty, and Pam Shane, who co-wrote Genie in a Bottle for Christina Aguilera. If you're a fan of the Joel Martin Mastery podcast, you'll love the Women in the Music Industry podcast, which is available on all platforms. Let's dive into the studio albums. Let's go through the discography. You mentioned in 1999, you guys released your debut album, Greatest Hits, which I found humorous. Obviously, it's your debut album, so you haven't had any hits yet. Where did the idea come from to call it Greatest Hits? I know you mentioned, there's all these metalhead, meathead albums that are all about macho and power. And then you guys come in with these kind of humorous titles to show maybe that's kind of your unique calling card. I'm not sure.
yeah, I think see the thing is like we do have like this kind of like clowny kind of like thing about us, but the music part is very serious. We take it seriously. And I think it's just we didn't know how to like go and act serious as our music is to us like throughout all day. You know what I mean? It's like if we were like a goth band, then you got to be goth all day, and then you got to walk around, you're goth, you go to the grocery store, you're goth, on Easter morning, you're goth. You know what I mean? It's like we didn't really want to like carry it into like every, part of our day that we're serious because we were writing breakup songs and all this kind of stuff. So it was important and meaningful to us, and we cared about our craft like so much, like passionate as passionate can be, but again, we weren't walking around just like being our band all day long. And so we like to be just goofy and we liked goofing off. We liked bands, like the Chili Peppers and different bands that kind of seemed like silly and like they were having fun doing, didn't want to be serious all the time and be like, I'm so depressed or I'm so tough or I'm so into the devil or I'm so whatever it is. I love hairspray or I love fucking hair dye or I love this or that, whatever it is. So I didn't really want to have like an identity like that anyway. And so, just and again, goofing around. So Greatest Hits was just a way of just again, just being cheeky or whatever. And we didn't again, we didn't know. We didn't really know what we were trying to do image wise. I think that might have been like a big reason that people didn't know what to do with us or to sign us or not to sign us. You got to have all of those things, all those boxes checked. And I think that the music we had, but we thought, okay, that's enough, right?
So even though there was a humorous side to the album went on to win Best Independent Album at the LA Music Awards. How much did that award mean to you guys that early on in your career? Was that to you like a major sign that, hey, we're doing something great and we're moving in the right direction?
Yeah, you know what? It meant a lot because well, so we had like had something with it with like our demo the year before and it didn't do anything. I mean it didn't win, but it was like nominated or something like that. You know what I mean? We were just like in the mix. We were happy to be because for us being from Riverside, here's what was important and kind of felt like a victory about it was that or triumphant, I should say. Triumphant was that
Sorry, that should be the seventh album should be Triumphant.
and then there we go, right? That means you're saying that we should make another record. Cool. Okay.
Absolutely, yes.
So no the so we're a band from Riverside. So coming to Riverside to LA, we were kind of like stepchild. We were kind of like those rubes from Riverside, and then like at the time, like Orange County was like, oh, because we were 909 at the time. We're 951 now. But it was like, oh, 909 or 951, like kind of those guys out there. You know what I mean? Just like kind of like everybody's like a little snobby and this and that. And we always thought, oh God, like oh, you're from the OC, you're so rad, you know what I mean? Or LA, look at me, I'm so LA or whatever. You know, we had our own little like opinion of them too. But but to come into like the LA scene and all that, we always felt like we were kind of like not cool enough. You know, we definitely didn't have the image, you know, factor going as hardcore as all the rest, that's for sure. And so a lot of that, we just felt like the odd man out every time we'd come to play. Like everybody knew each other. They hung out with each other during the week, you know, at different places, went to shows. They just were on the scene and doing their shit. And, you know, we thought, yeah, that's cool and all, but, you know, their music, what about that? You know what I mean? So we were just kind of like a little competitive. We had a little chip on our shoulder at that time. And and so we were out there, we wanted to fucking, you know, be better. We wanted to fucking go and kill it, you know what I mean? And it wasn't like anything personal. It's just like some of the vibes that we got from other people just made us want to be better, you know what I mean? And it's like kind of we would kind of look at them and be like, okay, that's what you're doing on stage. That's it. That's what makes you feel cool. Okay, got it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like not really buying it. It just looked silly. And so again, we had our own chip on our shoulder and opinion of them, you know. So we were coming to fight, you know, and all that. And so when we were doing it, and I think everybody else was too, but so when we were like doing that, you know, again, we felt like we were like the stepchild. We were like the ones that weren't cool. So when we won that LA Music Award, it was kind of a like in your face kind of thing moment. Like, yeah, like, and we're not even from LA. We're not even an LA Music Award band, you know what I mean? But we'll take the award, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like you guys didn't accept us, but we'll take your award, you know?
We'll take it
So
back to Riverside.
yeah, exactly. So it was something like that. So it felt good. I mean, I don't really it's not like I sit there and go, oh, like I was counting the days for the award ceremony or till the next one, we'll get them next time or something like that, or even the one after. It just when it happened, it just kind of came to my attention, like, oh, well, there you go. You know, kind of like that's awesome. So
It's nice to get some positive reinforcement. And speaking of positive reinforcement, I have some kind words sent in from Darren Pfeiffer, the drummer for Goldfinger, Sum 41, and the Salads. So Darren says, Mike's groove goes so deep you can feel it in your bones. He needs to be mentioned as one of the greats in rock and alt music. So it's Darren Pfeiffer.
wow, man, just everybody. I mean, Darren's a great drummer, and I chatted with him not too long ago, and he's always been a cool dude too, man. Uh, just meeting him, just again for because again, there's a like I was saying, there's like that kind of standoffishness, you know what I mean? And when you meet people like Papa Roach and like Darren and those guys, it's like such a pleasant like breath of fresh air, you know what I mean? Because it's like you feel like, oh, we don't have to act like you know we're posturing or something like that, you know. And he was never like that. And I remember just super cool and talented. I remember just kind of going like, wow, this guy's and actually talking to him like he knows a lot about the you know the instrument and you know just super enthusiastic about it. I remember too like we did we talked about the Craig Kilborn. We did this all-star drumming thing for the movie Drumline. We did a promotion thing live or it was a big drum line with a bunch of different drummers and Darren was part of that, so we had a good time kind of hanging out with other drummers and nerding out and all that. It was really cool. So
Did you
thank you,
meet
Darren.
him back in the Goldfinger days?
Yeah, because we were playing shows together. You know, we'd play festivals, and I think we did some. I don't know if they came on like Warped Tour a few times when we were there. I don't know if they weren't on Warped Tour when we were on it. But yeah, we played some shows together, and again, he was like he's like a drummer's drummer, so that's what was cool about him.
So in
And he
2001,
likes hockey too. He likes hockey, so
he is a hockey. Well, he is our adopted son in Canada. He moved here for a few years, and now I think maybe he's back in California. But if you come to Canada, you better love hockey, or it's hard to make friends.
absolutely.
In 2001, you guys released your major label debut, Anthology. This is a huge breakthrough for the band. Three hit singles. So you have Movies, Smooth Criminal, and Attitude. What thoughts, memories, emotions come back to you now when you think back to that album that really kickstarted the journey you've been on since then?
Well, right now, lately. It's because you said like attitude, and I hate to say it, but like I remember we debuted that on TRL with Puff Daddy, P. Diddy hosting. So with that all in the news right now, that just kind of came to mind. Anyway, but that sucks. But okay, the that whole time was so it was such a crazy experience because when I think back on it now, we were being set up for this monumental moment in our lives, you know what I mean, in our career, and when we were doing it, we were so just young, you know what I mean? And what we felt like we were older, like I was like 23 at the time, and I was like, God, when is this music career gonna kick in? You know what I mean? Like I feel like a loser, struggling artist and all this and that. And so once Papa Roach went and like made us good, then we got to go on the record and go make this record, at NRG with Jay Baumgartner and James Murray Engineering and everybody, that whole team, making that record. We walked into something that was like so special. And again, in hindsight, I realized what, like, I feel like we went into this like other planet, like a chamber, and came out on the other side of it, just like these developed, men. Like we just became like, I don't know. It's just like the difference between us before and after. You know what I mean? It's just like we learned so much. We got our ideas. We got to like, you know, craft our art, you know what I mean? And really, really like, spend this time, dedicated to all the stuff, to all that practice, all the times that you kind of sweated and tried hard and, had to get up early in the morning for work, or not get to work, or you're hungover and didn't make work because you had a rad show, had a good time, and fuck, man, you didn't make work and you get fired. And you're like, oh, this better turn into something, you know what I mean? All this and that. I mean, all those times, you know what I mean, like kind of came into fruition, and all the practicing and doubting and, you know, you break up with your girlfriend and she fucking curses you and your shitty band and all that, you don't want her to be right, certainly not. And so we when we got to go in there and go through these gates and do this thing and just really, really just dedicate all of our time, and everybody's energy is just focused on the notes that go on this record. You know what I mean? And it was just like, wow, here we are. The ultimate goal to just do nothing but focus on your music. I mean, it was, and at a level, no money mattered. Like it was just like, done, everything, spare no expense, just the experience, everything, just looking, around the room was awesome. Having like candles, lit the whole time we're playing, and it was just fucking, it was unreal, you know what I mean? And I mean, I remember the smell of it, the everything of it. You know what I mean? It's just like, and again, just the people and just the feelings, and just when you kind of when we were excited about it, because I just think, it's like when your mom says, "Oh, you're handsome" or something. You think, "Well, you're my mom." You kind of got to think that or got to say that or something. But when you're there, writing, you're pretty biased, about your music. So of course you think it's sounding good and it's coming out good. But when other people who are unattached to it are coming in, they're going, wow, this is really good. This is sounding, you're like, huh, you know what I mean? Like, and then after it all, said and done, just to realize like kind of what went on there and just the success that it gathered and became, just this cool record, and, to see it in Times Square lit up, you know what I mean? And all that kind of stuff. I mean, it just, so for all that to happen, and just everything that happened into making our first video and doing everything first and on that grand scale of like MTV and major label and blah 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 and all that kind of stuff, to see it, it was so overwhelming, and we were just swept away, and the success of it, and again the team that it took to make that happen. I mean, it can't be go unsaid, because it's just like there was such a team, at DreamWorks at that time, that responsible for, Papa Roach and for us and many other artists, Nelly Furtado, like all those bands that, all those DreamWorks artists that were coming out, at that time, Jimmy Eat World, there was a lot, and that team was just so just on point, and we just learned so much about the business, and that just everything that happens behind the scenes and all the roles that different people play. And that how much goes into each step, and when later on, seeing when things aren't going right, and seeing this the energy and the lack thereof, you know what I mean, compared to when the machine is fucking firing and just well oiled and just on point and just, you know, it just is like, you see it night and day. And so like, at the time that was our first experience. We thought, oh, this is gonna be like what it's like all the time. Like we made it through the door, and it's just like, and I wasn't foolish enough to think that everything lasts like that either, but it just felt so real and so unstoppable at that time. That team just felt like it didn't matter what you put in front of them, like they would make it successful. You know what I mean? So when that team started getting disbanded and broken up, I started to go, oh shit, like where's our people? Like that they're supposed to, they're like family. You walk into DreamWorks and everybody's like loves to see you. You're like the boys are here and all this and that. And it was just such a different feeling, everywhere you went, it was just the whole family was just spread across the country, throughout the world, just there was such a red carpet everywhere. It was really cool.
The album comes out, there's a number one single. The songs are everywhere, the music videos are everywhere. The album sells 1 million copies, goes platinum in the US, here in Canada, multiple other countries. There's virtually no one will ever experience what it's like to have that moment in time that you had. Do you ever stop and think about it that you're the 0.1% success story of musicians, millions of musicians that have this dream that you actually reach that pinnacle?
Yeah, you know what? It is, again, I've always been very respectful of this whole like and very honored, because playing music is such an honor, and everybody that I look up to and that I admire and have like idolized, that's done it before me, it's really important, what I mean, just like to me to like keep that respect, and so like getting to do it all, it almost feels like, do I deserve it? It's like an imposter kind of like, the kind of thing. And but at the same time, knowing you work hard and all this and that. So I it was a different time, I remember, because we when you're going to different places, we didn't have the internet to check in on ourselves or, Google ourselves or do whatever that you might do. It was We had like reports from our team from the record label and this and that, and so we'd be going to the next town to go conquer that town or the next country. So everything behind us, we had like gone and done the promotion, played the shows, done all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? And so in our wake, it was some success in there. And so we were like, cool, that's rad, but we didn't really get to like know about it until we were just too busy, like kind of like paving the way. When we came back home, then we finally could see like, oh, okay, so we didn't really like feel any of it, or like when it was all going on, and you know what I mean, like going there we were discovering like we'd be on like Much Music. Well, nobody in Riverside knows what Much Music is, you know what I mean? So it's like just like all those kinds of things. It was like territorial, so we were just like going and conquering, trying to do that. So at the time, like we didn't really know what was going on or anything. Like I said, we just knew that we had a strong team behind us, and all those things that you said that became like a result of it all was, again, just all those people doing all that work and us just like head down, go to the next city, work, go to the next city, work. You know what I mean? And it was cool. We were having a good time. We love playing music. The one hard part about it all was that the disenchantment was that, as you get there and you do all this stuff, and it's a lot of like TV and a lot of this, a lot of like just press and this, we're like, fuck, man, when do we get to play our music, our instruments? You know what I mean? Like we're starting to lose with success, that amount of success, that level, it it becomes like uh, the last thing you do is play music, it seems like.
Hmm.
So we started getting like a little frustrated sometimes, like, when do we get to play music? When are we gonna play music? So anyway.
So we have a fan question sent in from Angus Thompson. Here's the question. Who were your musical influences when writing Anthology? Side note, love the bass line in the song Courage. God damn. So that's from Angus.
Yeah, that was cool. Thanks, Angus. We were all influenced a lot at the time. We were really into Weezer. We were really into Sade. we were really into Steely Dan. We were really into Sting. We were really into Harry Connick Jr. We were really into Ben Folds 5. We were really into Bad Brains. See, we had at the moment that's kind of like what we were into while we were recording it. Those were the things that we were listening to a lot. I do remember because I Sade Lovers Rock had just come out. But yeah, that's what we were listening to when we were doing that.
So the first single from that album was Movies, and it comes out and does pretty well, but then the second single is Smooth Criminal, which is this massive global success. And then you guys re-release Movies again afterwards to kind of ride the wave from Smooth Criminal. Um, I have to be honest, I discovered Alien Ant Farm because of Smooth Criminal. And I actually didn't know that it was a Michael Jackson cover until later because I was 16 when it came out, which means I missed Smooth Criminal being a Michael Jackson single back in the day. So I just love this original Smooth Criminal song from Alien Ant Farm, and then later on you find out it's a cover. So I thought I would just point that out.
Yeah, well, a lot of people, same thing, you know, what I mean, because they're younger, they didn't have that first, experience. Like we grew up with Michael Jackson, you know. It's funny because Dryden and Dave Buckner, they both went to the same Michael Jackson concert at Dodger Stadium, like not knowing each other, but as kids, you know. So, but yeah, so we all grew up, loving that stuff, and for it to come full circle like that is kind of funny. But yeah, a lot of kids did not know, and people would have like shirts that they would make that said like "You just moshed to Michael Jackson" and stuff like that, and so yeah, that was like the one that took off first. The way the story goes is that movies we went to put that out. We went to make a video for it, and when you put out a when you at the time the video and the single you want to sync up, so you want them to both to hit at the same time, come out at the same time. So we had it all on schedule to do, and we did a video with Tamra Davis and who did Billy Madison, and she was just getting ready to do the movie for Britney Spears called Crossroads, and so she was kind of like in a little time crunch. And when we did the video, it was like a big video at Universal Studios, on the back lot and all this and that. We made this video and it was pretty cool. It's cool in concept, and but just the execution was just poor. And when we did it, we thought, God, like, do we suck at making music videos? Again, like the whole image thing and this and that, like maybe like we'd suck. And so that didn't happen. Well, the video was bad, and we were on our way to go join this Linkin Park tour. And halfway there, they messaged us and said, no, you got to get on a plane. So we had to get on a private jet and then fly back to LA, get out, do another video with Marco Siega, who's done like a bunch of Dexter and done a bunch of he did like Papa Roach, uh, Last Resort. He did a bunch of videos at that time, and so he did the video for us for movies, which was like kind of like just behind the scenes, like on a stage or whatever. So we did that one, which is just like a makeshift because he had a stage that he was working on that he just like kind of said to DreamWorks, okay, I could do this. I got this location. I just wrapped up a video. If you want to get them here, I'll make it work best we can. So DreamWorks was like, yeah. So we went out there. We missed a couple more dates on that Linkin Park tour to do this video. Then we flew back out, got to the Linkin Park tour. So in that time, the song had been released, and the video finally made it to MTV. Just went to M2. It didn't sync up. It wasn't released at the same time. So all that stuff was off. You know what I mean? So according to the data and all that kind of stuff, it's like it didn't sync up, and so that was that. And so we kind of lost a little traction there. Well, during that time, people were starting to like discover the record and found that Smooth Criminal. And so K-Rock New York started playing it, and they're kind of like a trend setting like station. So as they started playing it, other people started playing it, and it just kind of caught fire that way. And so it was never a plan of ours. In fact, we thought at the very end of the record cycle, like when we're going to make our second record, we'll put out Smooth Criminal and let that carry us over into and that was our strategy. But so definitely took a different course. But so they started playing it, and so that took off. Well, then it was like, okay, well, this is starting to be a hit, so we're gonna make a video now for it. So we had to go make a video for it right away, and it was like with Mark Klassfeld, make a big old video, do everything, spend all the money, get it all rad. And so we made that video, and and then we parlayed that into a co-op with MTV, and so MTV did it with Tough Enough, so it was like a wrestling thing, and so it was just getting played on MTV like a lot. So everything was, even though that didn't come out the same, like sync up the same way, but it just had some fire behind it. So then that all happened. It was doing good, everything was good, and then 9/11 hit. Okay, and when 9/11 hit, because we had just done the VMA, opened that, we played that, and shortly, that was that weekend, or the couple days after it, 9/11 hit, and excuse me, there was like this list that got sent out to radio where they kind of like just blackballed a lot of these songs, and it said it was like during sensitive times, we can't play this list of these songs, like Drowning Pool, Let the Bodies Hit the Floor was off the list. Smooth Criminal was off the list too. I mean, there were so many songs. I mean, I'm sure you
I
remember.
remember Stained from this album here. Stained, the song Fade. The music video has they're performing in a clock tower that's collapsing. That
Oh,
video got banned. I
yep.
remember there was the band Joy Drop had a song called Sometimes Wanna Die. That got banned. Just anything about death essentially was removed.
Yeah, just insensitive times, you know what I mean? So I mean, I get it kind of, but with some of them especially, but so and you've been struck by a Smooth Criminal, like it's
Yeah.
kind of,
That's kind
yeah,
of a reach, but
but you know what I mean? And Let the Bodies Hit the Floor, I understand, all those things. But again, it's nobody saw that coming. So when that happened, they took the song off the radio, and so when that was going on, the radio stations were still like, wanted to support the band. And so they're like, is there anything, when we play movies again or do whatever. So they started playing movies again. So we made another video for movies, like a proper, like good video. Got
the
Mr.
one in the movie theaters?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we did that video. So that's the third video that we did for movies.
That's
Okay.
funny.
Yeah. And so that's how that happened. So it was our first and third single was movies, and our second biggest single was Smooth Criminal.
So that music video for Smooth Criminal, it's such like an undeniable, iconic music video. It has 400 million views on YouTube, which is huge. And then the song itself has hundreds of millions of spins just on Spotify. It's so crazy how successful that song is. And we have a fan question about it. This is from Mike Lalonde, who's a local artist, goes by the name of Petty Cash. His question is, can you ask Mike if Annie is in fact okay?
Yeah, yeah. I think so. I think she's tired of hearing her name, maybe, tired of being asked the question. Now, people ask that. I don't mind, but a lot of people, they think the song's called Annie. Play Annie.
Play that Annie song. We have some kind words sent in. All the drummers showed up for you here today. I guess there's like a strong drummer community. This is from Dave Murata, who's the drummer for the platinum band Saving Abel. That was my last guest on the podcast. And he says, I first met Mike at a show in Nashville a few months back and was in awe of his playing ability. I've always been a huge fan of his work on all of the Alien Ant Farm albums, and they were definitely an impact on my childhood thanks to Tony Hawk Pro Skater. I think it was number 3 that you guys had the song Wish in. He says the way he constructs drum fills and snazzy licks are definitely what caught my attention when first hearing his band. It later gave me the courage, see what he did there, to start adding fills like that into my vocabulary. Hope to see you again soon. Rock hand emoji. You're the man. That's from Dave.
Oh, awesome, Dave. Yeah, I do remember meeting him out there in Nashville, and that's so cool. That's very, very nice. And like some of the fills and some of the stuff, some people say, "Man, you got away with murder." And I gotta say, Jay Baumgartner was awesome to let me do that. I didn't realize that, you know what I mean? Like, and I listen back to some of the stuff, I go, "Oh, dang!" Like, that's not. So I didn't know anything different. I was just trying to do what I was trying to do. But that's very cool and very kind and awesome.
So my last question about that album, and then we'll move on to the next one. Um, does it mess with a band's head when their first major label debut album is their most successful of their career? I guess what I'm asking is, does it mess with you in the fact that maybe you have all that success with the debut major label album and you think every album moving forward is going to be just like that? Or does it mess with you because that was the pinnacle and then the other albums don't sell as well and you start to doubt yourself and question yourself? You can answer that any way you want.
No, I, it's a tough one to kind of like answer that way because I mean, even if, I mean, your records don't sell so much, now, so to gauge it that way is you can't really do it that way. But I mean, but as far as success goes, whatever you call it, however you measure it these days, I mean, definitely that was the most successful on a popular, standard that way. And you know, when we were starting out, we didn't expect to become like a pop band like that. That was never like our goal, or we didn't even imagine that, that it'd be that big or we'd become that popular at the time or whatever. And so when that happened, it was a little bit like um I was just taken off guard a little bit. And then you do start to like kind of think about it like, shoot, like what if this eclipses us, and then all we have is people think that we're just a cover band or something like that. I've thought about those things, and while it was happening too, because that was why we wanted Smooth Criminal to come out maybe at the last song of that record cycle, because we were aware of what that could do, but we weren't scared of it either because we thought we could kind of outplay it or something. I mean, it definitely like it's taken over, you know what I mean? Like as far as like the known song, what we're known for, but like I said, at the time, the bands that we wanted to be like, or that we grew up, loving and they developed, you know what I mean? So it wasn't just like they shot out of the gate like huge, you know what I mean? Not typically anyway, you know what I mean? So it's like, we thought, a few records in, that's when you really, really get your commercial success. But, the first couple are like kind of grinding, working your way up. But so with that said, it's like, when you come off of that, you do have your second record, and you do kind of look around, and there was a lot that went into it. So for our second record, I mean, we were just on our way to playing like a bunch of festivals like higher up on the bills and this and that, and that's when we got in the bus wreck and all. And so when that happened, and I'm not gonna like say like it would have been any different had that not happened. I'm just saying like we would have wrote out that touring and all that. I think would have been in people's faces a little bit more and fresh, and had a chance to do other stuff rather than kind of just go away for a bit and just kind of like have Smooth Criminal be like kind of the last little thing. I know we had Attitude do came out too, and it did decent, but yeah, after all that, and I think that like when we when you have your second record, you would think that, okay, well, you were in a bus wreck, you have like a bunch of stuff to write about, like, but you don't really like think that when it's so fresh, and you don't want to cash in on that, or talk about that. It wasn't really like thought of like that, and so you're still battling with, well, it's your sophomore record, you know what I mean? It's like you're like, okay, I got everything out on that first record, now we got to write a second record, like, in
Well, yeah,
that
they
time.
say you spend your whole life leading up, to your whole life is writing that debut album, and then you have, a year or two to write the next one.
Yeah, I mean, unless you have a couple songs that didn't go on the first record, that are in the bank. But then again, that's like, why didn't they make the first record? All that stuff. So it's like you're trying to like, write. And you want to get better, obviously, want to just continue to progress. But yeah, to try and like kind of capture that all. And I think too, we were just internally, battling. So all those like typical like typical band things, rock and roll, pitfalls. We suffered them all, So all that stuff started to happen. So all those, whereas like Papa Roach and some of our contemporaries were just like kind of trudging along, and when they had their pitfalls, like with having to just get sober and do their stuff and, kind of do all that. Um, they continued to work. We kind of went, just got strung out, not strung out on drugs necessarily, but just like the band just split, you know, went its separate ways and so just it was constant trying to get the band back together. So I think that was like the struggle. Um, so yeah.
So in 2003, you guys released the album Truant, two singles, These Days and Glow, which was a top five single. We have a fan question from Scott Manson. His question is, what was it like working with the Stone Temple Pilot legends, the DeLeo brothers, for the Truant album? Did they influence your music or style?
Oh man. So yeah, getting to write or learn, to work with them and write a record under their like tutelage, you know what I mean? It was pretty surreal and it was like going to school. It was everything. If you watch you can watch like the Rick Beato with Robert DeLeo, and it's just like a lot of the stuff that he's saying and that they're talking about. I was like, I remember like kind of just having just Robert playing and showing us some of these songs and just like how to play the songs right. That Stone Temple Pilot stuff like the chords and just like different inversions, and for our own music too. It really really became something. Uh, it was a big lesson and just again songwriting and just the craft of being a musician and like just God, how do I say it? It's just like just tone wise, you know what I mean? Like just learning about tones in there. All the old gear and vintage gear that they had in their collection, they brought out like during that time. And I mean from tones to how you're constructing the song, harmonies, chord inversions, progressions. I mean, they really just get in there. I mean, it was a little overwhelming. I wanted to say at first, that, like because they're such good songwriters and such good, and we were so in awe and enamored. You know what I mean? To where it was almost like here, take my guitar, just go ahead and do it. Like almost like you do it. You know what I mean? But then, we got to business and they did a great job just like kind of coaching us and big brothering us and doing all the things that they needed to do to get that out of us because it was a lot and they stepped into like a pretty fragile band, you know what I mean, with everything that we had gone through at that time or up to that time. And so and they had been through plenty themselves and we learned a lot about the whole rock and roll stuff and they told us a lot of stories and shared a lot of insight. And so, to see kind of like the battles and struggles that they had within their band and hear about it firsthand and then to know what, just monstrous, musicians and just like just how great they are and just what they've kind of juggled within that and just all of it that they've like kind of encompassed being musicians, being a band that they were able to share with us and kind of rub off on us at all. It was something else, you know what I mean? Like I feel like again, they're in our DNA, you know what I mean? And yeah, I can't say enough about how just legendary they are when you hear their music. When I hear their music now, it's like just knowing and having worked with them, it's like I feel like I'm like even closer inside of it because it is really, really just top-notch songwriting. And at the time, I want to even say this too. I'll say I was a little bit like apprehensive about going to work with them because for us and our band and our aspirations to what we were trying to do, like Stone Temple Pilots was not like, you know, on our radar that way. We loved them, thought they were great at what they do, but we weren't trying to be like them at all. You know what I mean? That wasn't the thing. I wish that we were more like them in hindsight, you know what I mean? Because like they just are so just monstrous at just their abilities and just the sensibilities and capabilities and just where the depth of their artistry and their knowledge and abilities to like play the music and construct it all. And I mean it's just it was it was intimidating a little bit too, and I was worried like the guys in the band were gonna get swept up like kind of like, oh well, like it's Stone Temple Pilots, let's try and impress Stone Temple Pilots by writing songs like the Stone Temple Pilots, you know what I mean? So I got kind of a little bit like I didn't know what to do. So at first I was like, oh shit, I don't want to get in that whole like kind of caught in their tractor beam, you know what I mean? But it slowly just, or quickly, I should say, it turned into what it turned into, and it was so fun, and they were so like good to let us all be our own, musicians, and yeah, but yeah, it was I couldn't be more grateful for what I learned in that session. Again, with tones and like now as we go record and do everything that we do now, like being in those sessions and having them show us different guitars and different, just ways of capturing different tones and just everything that we learned in there, it was can't say enough.
So we only have a few minutes left, but there's still three studio albums. So I'm gonna speed through the next two albums so we can spend a little time on the newest album, Mantras. So
Okay.
you guys release Up in the Attic in 2006. There's two singles, Forgive and Forget and Around the Block. Then in 2015, you guys release the album Always and Forever, two singles, Let 'Em Know and Homage. And then this year in April, you guys release Mantras. And man, I love the sound of this album. So I went to school for audio engineering. My favorite thing in the world is having a good pair of studio headphones on and just consuming full albums at a time. And the new album sounds absolutely incredible. There's this warmth to it, even though the music is heavy or aggressive. There's just something pleasing about the sound. Uh, and you mentioned to me this was recorded in your home. So can you give us a little bit of insight into the writing and recording of this new album?
Yeah, so it was recorded right here at this desk that I'm sitting at right now. So in this house, and mostly Dryden did some vocals around the corner at his house where he lives, and we did it with SJ and Lucas who came. He engineered. We did the first four songs with them here, and then we did the last on our own with our buddy David Cobb, who also helped out. And Lucas engineered some, David engineered some, and I engineered some, and it was just basically, just doing it here. We did used a lot of the Steven Slate stuff and, just the gear that I've accumulated throughout the years. And I have a basement here at the house, and we just pretty much got everything together. Terry lives in town, and it just, the first four songs we did, in the beginning, it was before COVID, and then COVID hit, and we didn't know what the band was going to do. But then we said, we got to finish this. We had, the budget just sitting in the bank. So we got together, we got the gear that we needed to finish it all. So we did it here at the house here, and we spent a lot of time. And again, the stuff that we learned from the DeLeo brothers, we kind of employed into this record. Just again, tones and old amps, little low wattage, amps, and using that stuff, just my DW drums, my pink kit is what I used, for the whole record. And it was, and it was because we did it at NRG the first couple records, well, the first record and third record we did at NRG, and it's like such a beautiful experience and immaculate studio. And so to do it here was a pretty cool test and testimony to what we can do to ourselves here and what we've learned throughout the years. Because I wanted to be a drummer. You know what I mean? I didn't want to be a recording engineer. I didn't want to like have a studio. I never wanted any of that. It just kind of unraveled along the way, and I started learning, getting curious, and just by default, this is what it's become. And Dave Buckner too. Like I remember back in the day, he would be like recording. I'm like, I don't want to have to do that stuff on our own, man. That sucks, man. I just want to like play the music, have somebody else do that. So, but now, man, it's been so fun, and I'm so fascinated by it, and it's been so great to like learn and to say that we've done this record here at the house. And Lucas mixed it over in France, so there's a lot to be said for that. But yeah, we did it here, we got more stuff that we're doing here, and I feel like so proud of the way this record sounds and the things that we did together. I feel like again we've learned a lot. We've learned from some of the best. We've recorded with a lot of the best, so that for us to be able to do it shouldn't be so crazy because we have spent a lot of time learning from a lot of like great people that do this stuff. So But that being said, I'm super stoked the way that it came out, the songs, just the writing process. It was a lot that we went through personally, in order to get to this record and to finish the record. We had to overcome a lot of things personally, each of us, and I couldn't be more proud and more like driven and poised, and happy with the work that we've just, currently turned out, and for what the future feels like for us. It really does feel like, I feel very blessed and thankful and just grateful for everything that we've had, and the opportunities, and they seem to keep coming, and with these festivals that we're talking about and this tour coming up overseas. I mean, I feel grateful. I mean, I feel way more inspired to play drums than I have in a long time. For a while there, you play drums because it's your job, or you write a record because that's your job. You write music, but we didn't ever do it like with that mindset. Well, it's our job. We got to turn this in. But it's like, it's hard to kind of like, if you're not doing it authentically from the heart, like something that you need to express and get off your chest, then you don't know what you're doing it for. It's like as if you go play on someone else's record, where it's a great experience, but it's not kind of you as an artist doing what it is that you ultimately try to do. And so on this record, I feel like, everybody came together. I think, again, drawing from the experience, like where you say, like, for your first record, you have your whole life to write your first record. I feel like we had a lot of time off and went through a lot of stuff to where it kind of accumulated, where it was kind of like something that had to get done, whether people heard it or not. It was like we needed to get some of this off our chest. And so I feel good, and it's great because, going through the record, and stuff. I mean, I'm sure, when you're recording stuff, you don't, you don't just go in there and go, okay, well, we're going to record this rad record. We got it all done. It's somewhere in there, like a lot of stuff happens. There's a lot of trying parts, at least for us, where I'm like, I don't even know if I like this fucking part. Like, what the fuck are we doing, right here? And just little things, you got to massage it out, and then all of a sudden it just turns into something that I'm totally proud of, and could not be more happy, and emotionally, invested in. It really has, drawn something out of me. And just like again, I feel like we're playing better. We feel a lot better. Like, just like more, there's just something more behind the music and behind our performances and stuff, like, currently. And I think we've always cared, but I'm just saying, it's like right now I feel like this record really captured everything that we were feeling, and the sound of it is exactly like kind of how we ultimately wanted it to sound. I didn't know, like, when the songs were being written, if I liked it, but now I listen to it, I go, oh, okay, yeah, it was all like worth it. So I don't know. For me, it feels, like a victory, just to get the band to function, at one point. But now that the record, listening to it, I feel very proud of it. So
Am I
thank you.
crazy, or is this the best that Dryden's vocals have ever sounded? Between his vocal performance and then the technical stuff, maybe mic choice, engineering, mixing, mastering. Am I crazy, or do you think that as well?
I think that it's a result of, you know he really, well, he's, for one, he's grown as an artist. You know what I mean? He's learned, exactly what he wants out of himself. He's a lot more, he's not the same kind of kid that's going in there, as an artist, that's like rad and quirky and a trippy dude going in there and doing his thing. He's like really, really like harnessed, like, his, again, his artistry, and what he does, his craft. And so he went with some of these songs and, had a whole different take on it, and then just kind of like wiped the slate clean, and then just went back to it and did some other stuff. I think that he was really spent a lot of time, like, getting his feelings out and really making it authentic. I think that's has a lot to do with it too. He really was focused on what he was trying to do and how he wanted it to sound, and all that, getting his own takes. He did some of the stuff, excuse me, here, and he did a lot of it over at his house on his own. You know what I mean? Where he just kind of sat there. Where before he'd work with like an engineer or somebody, and there was times where, collaborate and kind of get ideas out together, but then he might go and just really, really touch it up and redo it, to his liking, like all of his phrasings and stuff, just at his house. You know what I mean? And I think it's just a good way for him just to get in his comfort zone and all that. And like I said, we did it a few different ways, you know what I mean? Where he's been in the room talking or singing with people talking to him and all that stuff. And all that. I just think that he's learned a lot. He knows what he wants out of himself, and I think he knows how to get it now too. You know what I mean? Rather than kind of like, when you're recording, if you don't know how to do it much, you kind of are like waiting for some magic to happen or for them to tell you that it's okay, like you did it. Like you don't know. You kind of like go, "Oh, was that good enough?" But now, like as you do it and you have experience, you kind of go, "Okay, that's the one. I think that's it. Let me hear that one. Oh, that one felt right," or something like that. So it's I think it's just again development and maturing, and then also having something like honest, authentic that was getting off his chest. I think all those things.
So I listen every year, I listen to almost every major album released that year. And then I make a best albums of the year podcast episode. And I have to say that I currently have this new Alien Ant Farm album Mantras in the top 10 best albums released in 2024. I don't say that to every guest in case you're like, oh, he's just talking to me. He's saying that. I truly think it's so far one of the best albums I've heard this year. And the actual sound itself is incredible. The songs are great. The performances are great. And our listeners, you got to go check it out. Give it a listen as well. And we have some kind words sent in. And this is not from a drummer for once. So this is from a bass player. This is from Joshua Toomey, bass player originally for Primer 55. He has the Talk to Me podcast. He's does a lot of work with Slipknot's Knot Fest. And this is what he says. He says, Mike crushes for the Alien Ant Farm rhythm section and is an underrated drummer. As a band, Alien Ant Farm has always been one of my go-tos from that era. Love them. And then he says, I think I'm seeing him on Friday. So I don't know if he's at one of your shows or a festival or something. So that's
Oh yeah,
Joshua Toomey.
that's awesome, man. Thanks, Josh. And yeah, I know who he is, and that's awesome. Yeah, he's probably gonna be playing or be at the Louder Than Life in Kentucky there. Hopefully, no
He's
storms.
he's usually there doing interviews with all the heavier bands.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, that'll be it. Sorry. Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm who was this talking that they're talking to him right now? One of my guys. Anyway, so wait, hold on one sec. All right. So yeah. Well, thanks, Josh. And I'll probably see him on this Friday then. And the guys are just getting here to rehearse. We got to practice our musical instruments.
That's all good. I have just a few more kind words sent in and then we can
Yeah, I'm
wrap it
good.
up. Okay, perfect. So we
Take
have
your time. We're good. They're gonna go down there and get set up.
that's all good. We got the other band members. So we have some kind words sent in from Taylor Roberts, who's the guitarist for the band Taproot. And this is what Taylor has to say. He says, Mike is such a kind soul and an incredible drummer. For someone who's achieved the success he has, he doesn't let it go to his head, and he's incredibly personable. I'll never forget getting to play with him and his band, and how wonderful he was towards me and the rest of Riding with Killers. So that's his other band. My favorite memory of him was smoking a joint with him backstage at District 142. He was so locked into the conversation, and I kept thinking in my head, dude, I used to watch you on MTV when I was 12, and here we are smoking a doink together. Very, very cool dude and great memories with him. So I had never heard doink before, and I asked if he misspelled joint, and he said doink is Michigangster for joint. So he's from Michigan. There you go.
Yeah, no, Taylor's a cool guy. Taproot, I met him when he at that show that we played together, and he told me that he was playing with Taproot, which was like so rad because they're some great friends. And speaking of like a great drummer and a great person, um, is Jared from Taproot. He's just like one of my favorite people that I've ever met in rock and roll. And Taylor's a super hardworking and great guy too. I haven't known him as long. But yeah, if he's hanging out with Jared and saying those nice words about me, then that's good because that's good company. Jared's like a just top-notch person too, and great drummer. And I love seeing Taproot. Those guys need to fucking start playing some shows with us because we want to get out there and do it again with them. But yeah, awesome. And yeah, we smoked that joint and Michigan, man. They have all that good weed, so definitely.
So we have one fan question and one comment, and then we'll wrap it up. So this is from Stevie, who's the drummer for the Irish band On Off. Stevie's question is, what would be your most important advice to younger musicians wanting to learn an instrument and to play proficiently?
Okay. So this is like it's so my advice would be because when I was younger, it was a whole different kind of like just what you have out there, like the resources and stuff, to have YouTube and everything else that you have, all the different reels and different, wherever you find, everywhere you go scrolling. For me, my algorithm is like just, loaded with drumming stuff. So I just see like drum chops like non-stop whenever I pick up my phone if I go on there. So there's all that, and that could be almost like overwhelming. Even sometimes you're like, okay, you can learn a million chops. What I think is ultimately what I would say to somebody like kind of being aware of what I am as like an older fucking boomer or whatever the fuck, I would say get with an instructor, learn to read music and learn technique. Get with somebody that can physically sit there and even grab your hand and kind of show you over and over again, because technique is going to be the ultimate like method to get you to where you want to get. I mean, you can get so far, only so far, I should say, just like learning on your own and cowboying that shit. You know what I mean? But when you want to really, really learn to finesse it and learn the technique and all that, I mean, there's a lot of people who don't, and I don't know how they are, how they do it, and fucking, good on them. But for me, when I started to like kind of break some of those barriers, and break through, it was learning technique, learning, sitting with a teacher, right there in person. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that you can do online, to learn stuff, but there's only so much. I think that it's really important to physically get there and also to hear how the drums sound when they're hit. Because a lot of stuff gets, you play on pads, you do all this and that. And I would just honestly learning to read music and learning how to just to kind of write it out, you know what I mean, and transcribe anything. I think is just great exercises because, even as I'm learning like Spanish right now, it sounds silly, but it's like, when you write it out and you do different things, it's like you start to see how it all works. And, you take the time, you stare at it long enough. I think that's important. I think there's a lot of people that you can learn a chop, you can learn stuff real fast and certain techniques like say double bass, real fast or your hands real fast. But you got to know how to like put it into music and employ it and like really, really um but to employ it and put it in the music. And one thing I want to say too is like a lot of people, you got to play with people too. You got to feel what it's like to push and pull with people, you know what I mean, with a click, without a click, all that stuff. I mean, a lot of times too, like people don't jam as much, and I think that they, you just record and record and record because you can, and it's rad. But you get lost. Someone gets lost when you're trying to perform together. It gets a little fudgy and a little blurry. I think all those things need to be checked off if you want to be a musician, like the way that I'm talking about being a musician, to play live, to record, to check all those boxes. I mean, it's so overwhelming because you have to be everything all in one. Like I didn't start off wanting to learn how to engineer. I love it now. I'm passionate about it now. I think it's great. I'm so glad that I understand things now. But again, you know, I just wanted to play the drums, at first. I'm glad that I learned that first. And I learned how to dedicate and be disciplined on that one thing first, and then apply that discipline to other walks of whatever you're trying to do. Because I think that, the whole, and I've been swept up in the rock and roll of it, going out, partying, fucking being hungover, shit. Oh man, I don't feel good to play, all those kinds of things, you know what I mean? And after doing it all, I'm very, very happy and can say, 100% that playing the music is like the greatest joy and the greatest drug of it all. Getting together with your friends and having that stuff come together and be out there, into the air. And connect with the audience and have everybody like, just like reciprocating. It is just, it's everything that I desire to be and participate in. And I think that, when you're going to learn to do this stuff, you really, really want to do it and pay it respect, and that way know everything that's come before you. Be curious, and again, find a teacher that can really, really like kind of unlock those things for you and really guide you with technique and again, reading and writing the music, just learning how to do it to communicate like that. It is so helpful, and it's like having a language that you can all speak. You don't have to get descriptive and create these adjectives or employ other adjectives for stuff that can just be said on musical terms. not to sound like a robot and all that, but man, all those things that you can pluck from the tree and take into, and consume, you should, because like those things are just gonna like just furthermore create a language and convey everything you're trying to do. So that's what I think. And I think that across any discipline, whether it's, engineering, playing music, anything. So just like create that discipline and apply that. But again, if it's music, technique, and learning to read, I think is everything.
So we have the final quote of the interview. The only thing better than receiving a quote from the Platinum Band Saving Abel is receiving two quotes from the band Saving Abel. So this is from a different member. This is from Scott Wilson. And he says, aggressive is an understatement when Mike slings the sticks. With a punk flavor and a jazz precision, he is such a tasteful drummer. The best part of Mike is he is a world-class, kind-hearted human. So that's from Scott Wilson.
Wow, man, that's so nice. And I'm glad to hear that, like I love, just that they're listening and paying attention. I super appreciate that. And even more so, it's like with my daughter too. It's like I'm so like I tell her I'm so proud of what she does, but I just like, it's important. I go more than that. I go, I love that you're a good person. All your accomplishments, all this and that. I just love that you're a good person. And that's the thing. It's like I really, like I said, like I really respect everybody that does this, that's come before me and after me and contemporarily, you know what I mean? Like I really, really do. And there's been, just times like I say where we've had chips on our shoulders and there's a competition and there is a little bit of that, but that's I think all healthy. But man, I love, just, you know, doing what I do and the fact that people, pay attention and all that, and just especially the people on the level that these people are, and Dave and everybody, just like just it really really this is a super heartwarming. Thank you.
So, final question. If you could sit down next to your 10-year-old self and you could whisper words of advice in cute little Mike's ear, taking all the lifelong experience and mentorship and lessons, the ups and downs, all those things, what advice do you share with little Mike to help guide him through this human existence?
I would say I would say don't doubt yourself, those times that felt like you weren't, like, how would I say it? The times that you feel like you're not good enough or whatever, don't be surprised in what you can do if you just stick to it, like just stay the course, but just like keep the discipline, and don't be so shaken, because there's times, I guess what I mean by that is that there's times when you have a plan and then when it doesn't go as planned, you could either kind of like run away, kind of quit, give up or whatever. I never did that, but I remember just kind of like doubting myself. What I mean is it took me a long time to assert my confidence. Like I had it in there somewhere, but I was a little bit, again, respectful and kind of like was a little bit more, my manners, like were like better, where I just like kind of, and I wasn't quite sure if I had it all together, but I wanted to gather enough information and knowledge to know that I could say, nah, I think it's this way or whatever. But I think maybe to speak up sooner, I mean, if you like, don't be shy to assert your confidence.
So, as we wrap up, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you for your lifelong pursuit of mastery as a drummer. I want to acknowledge you for dreaming big and showing us what's truly possible as a musician. I want to thank you for all the incredible Alien Ant Farm music that has become the soundtrack to the lives of millions of people around the world, including myself. I want to thank you for continuing to release new music with Alien Ant Farm with the new album Mantras. And last but not least, I want to thank you for this interview, for sitting down with me for the last 2 hours. It's been a pleasure just nerding out over music with you. So, Mike, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Man, thank you so much. This has been so thoughtful, and the way you've constructed this and put it together, I appreciate it. And all the kind words from everybody that you gathered, I can't say thank you enough to them and to you for taking the time and doing the research and doing the deep dive like you've done. So I hope I didn't go too tangent, crazy on some of those answers, but yeah, I do appreciate it. And again, thank you for taking the time.
You're very welcome. So, to the Alien Ant Farm fans, to the Mike Cosgrove fans, to the podcast fans, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you.
If you've enjoyed today's episode of the podcast, please take a moment to subscribe, like, comment, and share. What I want to know is, who would you like me to sit down with next for a 2-hour deep dive interview? You can let me know by reaching out to me on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Joel Martin Mastery. Joel is Joel. And you can find me on Twitter and Snapchat at Joel Mastery. So I am done. I am complete. I approve this message, and I'll see you on the next episode.